Pep Guardiola says that Manchester City haven't spent enough money in the last 5 years and he's unhappy about it. So I've tried to work out whether he's actually got a point here. So he said today in his press conference that he's unhappy that Manchester City only appear 7th on the net spend for the last 5 years and that he wants them to be number 1 at all times and spend more than everyone else because now he's got 6 other title contenders. But he says, bring it on. However, when speaking about net spend, you always got to remember the base you're dealing with. It's like two people speaking about their house. One person lives in a £1 million house that they own outright, another person is renting, and then a few years later they compare what they've spent on the house. The other person has spent £300,000 on a new house. The first person has only spent 40 grand doing up the kitchen. The first person doesn't turn around and goes, well, I've only spent 40 grand. That means that you've got a better house than me. No. You've got a £1 million house plus the 40 plus any inflation from there. The other person got a 300 grand house. So when you look at Manchester City back in 2020, they had the highest valued squad at 1.07 billion. Then Liverpool were next, just slightly lower. Then Chelsea, then Manchester United, then Tottenham, then Arsenal, Everton and Wolves up there with West Ham, and then finally Villa. Newcastle are just off this, by the way. I forgot to screenshot it, but I've got theirs in a second. I've then taken all of the 2020 bases, then added the 5-year net spend to tell you what they are together. That doesn't mean it's the total squad value, but it's taking your base plus anything that you've spent equaling now. Chelsea are actually top. So Manchester City had the highest valued squad 5 years ago. Chelsea have spent 755 million since then, meaning that the total now is 1.56 billion. Manchester United's is 1.55 billion. Liverpool's is 1.49 billion. Manchester City's is 1.47 billion. Tottenham's is 1.38 billion. Arsenal's is 1.37 billion. So it has definitely got tighter up there. We can't deny that. Newcastle, because they went from 222 million in 2020, added 492 million, is 714 million. And then finally, Aston Villa, their value, their base was 233 million and only added 110 million in 5 years. 343 million. So Pep Guardiola is right in a way. You know, the other clubs have caught up. I don't think they've massively taken over. There isn't a huge gap between them and the rest. The real story here is Aston Villa, though. I think they're 1 point behind Manchester City and started off with a base of 800 million less and have spent 300 million less in the last 5 years. Come on.